Access Fort Wayne offers reflections of our community. Production facilities provided by Access Fort Wayne are a service of the Allen County Public Library. The views and opinions expressed do not necessarily represent those of Access Fort Wayne, the Allen County Public Library, or any other supporting organizations. For more information about creating your own television program with Access Fort Wayne, call 421-1250.
Hello and welcome to our show, The American Veteran. I'm Dale Parrish, your host. Carl Fowler is a co-host, and Lonnie and Barb Cox is our guest, along with Gary Shanks. Lonnie and Barb was on our last program. They're the founder of the Shepherd's House. But for a while, we'll be talking about Gary and Lonnie's service time. When did you go in? Lonnie, let's start with you.
Okay.
When did you go into service?
I went in '62 and got out in '65.
That was the Army, right?
That was the Marine Corps.
I had to do that.
I'm outnumbered here.
What year was it?
'62 through '65.
Yeah. You served where? Or where
I was
basic and...
Well, I went through MCRD, California for my boot camp, and ITR, of course, Camp Pendleton, San Onofre. And from there I went to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, and then shipped out overseas, come back to North Carolina, shipped out overseas, come back to North Carolina. I couldn't get away from that godforsaken place. All it was trees, sand, and snakes.
Yeah. Where, overseas where?
I don't know if you recall, probably the farthest I went was Spain, Portugal, Italy, and what we called in the Marine Corps the Med Cruise. But it was a problem called, that was in late 64, called Steel Pike 1. And we had no idea what it was at the time, but it was a whole East Coast Marines and that'd be the 6th Fleet, Atlantic Fleet. And we just left a few Marines to hold down the base and a few sailors to hold down the naval bases, and we were over there about a month and a half. And didn't really know what it was other than just a big problem of some kind or another, but later on found out that, well, that goes up through the Suez Canal and down. So we had problems back in the Far East, or back in that area a long time ago.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, long time ago we didn't know about.
Yeah.
But then I got out in April of '65, and it was just shortly after that, I think, with the Gulf of Tonkin, I think, was that in May? It was shortly after I got out, and then they shipped my whole company out after I got out. And then they started the draft, so I was free and clear, thank God.
Yeah.
Knock on wood, but I was very, very lucky.
Right. Yeah. Gary, when did you go in?
I went in 1964.
Was that the Marines or
I was in the Navy.
Navy?
Yep.
And transportation.
He was Department of the Marine Corps.
And got out in 1968. I spent my, out of boot camp, I spent my first 2 years in Key West, Florida. Worked at the Naval Air Station there. And then I got transferred from there to the USS Saratoga. And that was out of Mayport, Florida. We were detached to the Atlantic Fleet. And
I've heard of the Saratoga.
yeah,
She was a big one.
Yeah, she was a big one back in them days. She was a big one, and at that time she was a diesel-powered carrier. When we went to the Mediterranean, we were involved in the 6-Day War, which was really big in this, in that time. It was when the Arabs and the Israelis were having their uprising.
Yeah.
And we was out at sea for almost 2 months, just on patrol. And what was interesting about it, we was also the squadrons aboard the carrier. They were getting ready to, for Vietnam. So we had that going on. Plus, they were getting ready for Vietnam, and same way with Key West. We were preparing ourselves for Vietnam down there with all the military exercises that were going on.
All the readiness.
Yeah.
No one knew at that time.
Yeah.
I mean, we'd heard about Vietnam.
Yeah.
I mean, they're coming through. I don't know about it in the Navy, but in the Marine Corps, I mean, you want to get away from that spit shine. Boy, they mention, hey, you want to go to Okinawa or you want to go to Nam? Oh, yeah. Little hands go up, you're ready to go.
Yeah.
But you don't realize what
you
you're
know.
doing.
No, you
No,
sure
of
don't.
course not. But like I said, if you get the map out and look at that Mediterranean, then it goes into the Suez Canal, then it comes out around the China Sea. Well, they knew way back then what was going on.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't, of course. You just live day to day, and you're a young kid and don't know any better.
Well, I remember they were trying to shut that Suez Canal down for a while, sink ships in it and everything
Yeah,
else.
sure.
They wanted to shut it down.
Yeah.
Others wanted to keep it open. So.
Kind of makes you believe that 15 years or more ahead of time, they know what's
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
what's
way
all
ahead of time.
planned out. Yeah.
So Gary and I were both pretty lucky, actually.
Yep,
We were in
absolutely.
During the time, and it's like God had a place for us, and looks
Yep.
like we found that place. Doesn't it?
Yep. Then we, every day I was just, thinking, before I went in the Navy, I was up for the draft. And I said, I'm not going into the Army. So, anyway, I'd heard some horror stories. My brother just got out of the Navy, and he's telling me, he said, go into the, go into the Navy, and you'll be much, much happier. And I did.
There's that's Marine, and there's that's a Navy guy. We're both Army guys.
Well, we won't hold that against you.
No, that's okay.
But the thing of it is I think all of us, when we was going through boot camp,
Yeah.
or basic training, whatever you want to call it, heard the horror stories about the other groups.
Mm-hmm.
In the Navy, we heard, you're on ship, and the food supplies run low, and
Oh, yeah.
and you get bugs in the flour, and you're eating all that, and so the food isn't the greatest, and the ship goes down. Where you're going to walk to, you hear all these stories, and you talk about the ground pounders, which I consider myself a ground pounder. Mm-hmm. But I always figured I could walk someplace, if I got stranded or anything. But I was drafted for 2 years, and that was the big appeal, the 2 years.
Yeah.
When you join, you go for a minimum of 3 and mostly 4.
Yeah.
So I looked at that term of service, and so I can look at you guys and say, well, yeah, I appreciate your service very much, because you served longer than I did in that. But we served a little bit different.
Yeah, completely.
Right,
different.
absolutely.
Well, I had a little
But,
taste of the Navy, too. I mean, anytime we went anywhere, sometimes it was C-130s or whatever, but a lot of times it was on them flat-bottom LSTs.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
and I remember my first ride on an LST,
Rock and
I'm
roll.
scared to death, because I'd heard about these things. The guy said, nah, it ain't that big a deal at all, the old salts, So we're out there and we're puttering around, the ship's going like this. Of course, we're not out of port yet. And I said, is this as bad as it gets? Well, it gets a little worse, but not too bad. And pretty soon it's going like this. And so it's going to get worse? Well, a little bit, but not too bad. And then all of a sudden, we're at the galley having chow, and all of a sudden that shit went bum, 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 bum. It just took my breath away. I said, what was that? So you better get used to it. You got 4 more weeks of this. I thought, oh, no.
Yeah.
But it was quite, and then we hit a hurricane coming back.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really a ride, let me tell you. We lost a 90-ton causeway off the side. The causeway, for you Army guys don't know about this kind of thing. We'll bring you up to par on it.
Yeah.
The causeway is, an LST, the front opens up, and we have tanks and guns in there. And they drop these things down, they putter them up, and they line them up, and it's like a roadway from the ship to the shore.
Right.
And I understand they weigh like 90 tons. And they had these big chains holding them things to the ship. And in that hurricane, we lost one. And we're out there looking for that thing in a little LST, and it's down, we're up, it's up, and we're down, and we looked for that for, I suppose, about 12, 14 hours. And finally the captain said, this is stupid. We're going to find it, we're going to hit it. So we were allowed to leave and let the Air Force come in and shoot her down and sink it. But it was quite an experience on them LSTs.
Yeah.
I can imagine. Well, what was your job on the Saratoga?
I worked on the flight deck.
Did you?
I was what they call aviation bosun mate. I worked on the flight deck in Key West, and also I worked on the flight deck of the Saratoga. And what we did, we launched all the aircraft off the flight deck and recovered them when the mission was done. And back then, we averaged, it was about a 20-hour-a-day job. And we, took our chow breaks, but very seldom we get in, go to take a shower and hit the rack till about 11:30 at night or midnight, and then back up next morning on the flight deck doing the fog walk, ready for the first launch. It was brutal.
Was you one of the guys with the flags?
Right. We didn't use flags back there. The LSOs on the fantail ships, they was the one who used the flag. We was one that directed the planes on the catapults and hooked them up. Well, we didn't. The arresting gear crews hooked them up to the catapults, and we were in touch with the captain, all cleared, and we launched them off.
Actually, that catapult, what runs that?
Steam.
Is it?
Yeah, they're steam powered.
Okay.
Tremendous amount of
You
pressure.
had a very dangerous job.
It was dangerous.
You had to be aware of what was going on around you all
Right.
the time, didn't you?
And back then we had some reciprocating engine planes on there, and then we had jets also. And it was classified as one of the most dangerous jobs.
Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That,
I've heard that.
Yeah, that you could have was working on the flight deck of a carrier.
I've heard of guys walking into propellers.
Yeah, they walked in propellers. They got sucked up in the jet intakes.
Yeah.
But fortunately, we didn't have any incidents during our cruise.
Right.
But Lonnie was talking about whether we left the Med in 1968, coming through the Straits of Gibraltar. And right when we got into the Atlantic, we had a big storm, and for about 2 days, the ship just rocked back and forth, 45-degree lifts, and everybody was sick on there. Even on this thing was the aircraft carrier that size back then was about 3,000 people, and it was.
That's the carrier itself?
The carrier itself was just rocking back and forth. We hit that storm, and it lasted for about 2 days. And I couldn't even do anything, but I couldn't hold down any food. My diet was buttermilk and soda crackers. That's the only thing I could hold down.
Okay. Sounds like.
But it was enjoyable. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Wouldn't trade it for anything, would you?
No, I sure wouldn't. No.
And those LSTs, and when you hit the storms, you couldn't even keep water in the toilets. It was taking 45s.
Yeah.
They say it'll take a 45, but it won't take a 46.
Yep.
That thing get over at a 45-degree angle, it just sit there for a minute and say,
Yep.
is this the big one?
Yeah.
Are we
Yeah.
on it? The bridge go
Yep.
pop, 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 pop.
LST, they're around 300 feet long? Or?
I've never stepped at all, but it isn't very long, I know that. Yeah. We probably had, I suppose, 150 Marines on it, and we were pretty much full. Maybe 200 Marines, that was about it. Plus our tanks and guns.
Yeah.
It was quite a little ride on them LSTs. It was fun.
Was that the one the doors open?
Yeah,
clamshell?
doors open. Yeah,
Clamshell
Yeah.
instead of dropping down.
right.
No,
Yeah, we
Frankie
hit that.
was on an LST.
Yeah.
It was quite a ride, and after we got through that hurricane coming back, I'll never forget the name of it, or the Hurricane Flora, and it come off of the Africa there.
Coast,
Yeah, that's where they usually come, up around there in the Straits of Gibraltar. and we hit it, I suppose, a few hundred miles outside of Gibraltar. And the big I-beams in this LST were probably, I suppose that square and probably that thick. And I was walking down the corridor one day, and I heard a clock, clock. I happened to look over, and that thing was broken. Just doing that kind of thing every time that ship would take a roll of it. Yeah, and they put her in dry dock after that. It was just, we lost our fore anchor, our aft anchor, blew the stack off, lost that 90-ton causeway, and it was just all broke up. And Chaplain come on at night, and he said, if we get through this, boys, I'm thinking, wait a minute, if. You're an
Not
18,
if, when.
19-year-old kid, you think, it ain't no thing.
Yeah.
Nothing scared you back in those days. But.
Okay. Did you feel that you had adequate training for the job that you did?
On the ship or off ship?
Well, either one, because
was,
you go through boot camp.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, of course.
And that train you for a position, right?
Yeah. We all received our orders for our MOSs, military occupational specialties, at the last day of boot camp.
Right.
In the evening, and the drill instructor had us all there, and he's reading off, Smith, you're going to be 03, this. And he come to me and he says, plumber and water supply. Man. I thought, wait a minute, I didn't join this Marine Corps to be a plumber.
Right.
And they sent me to school camp in June, and it wasn't plumbing. It was, I don't know how the plumbing got in there. They didn't teach us anything about plumbing, but they taught us about waterborne diseases and that kind of thing, and how to purify water out in the field.
Okay.
And anytime we worked with our trade, our MOS, we went out with the grunts. So I really didn't get away with anything, but at least I had my own Jeep or my own deuce and a half to, carry my equipment out in the field. But we spent 90% of our time out in the field playing war games, and I'd set up a water point. We had mud hogs and everything. I mean, we could go into a rice paddy and suck the mud out of a rice paddy, squeeze the water out, and treat it through various tanks. And by the time we were done with it, it was drinkable water. Whereas a guy can go with days or weeks without food, but 3 days without water.
Yeah, water is a necessity.
Pretty sad
in
shit.
trouble.
So I didn't realize that at the time. I thought, boy, I don't want to be a plumber. I didn't join the Marine Corps to be a plumber. And I didn't.
So it turned out you ended up having a very, very important job anyways.
Well, I think every job in the military is important,
Oh,
really.
yeah, you can't get along without it.
Yeah. In the Marine Corps, every
They
man
could have
is...
got along without me.
That's what Dale was saying a little while ago.
So true.
And, in the Marine Corps, every Marine is a rifleman.
Yes.
First.
Yes.
I don't care if you're a mess cook out in the field. You carry your rifle with you. You're a rifleman. You will qualify at least once a year. You can go through it's kind of a boot camp training all over again, at least once a year, where you go through the gas chambers and that kind of thing.
Oh, sure.
Renew
Those are fun too.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it was, I think all of us would probably say, now you only remember them good times when you're in. We forget them bad times. So,
Yeah.
I think every kid, and I've said this for years, I think every young man should have to go through the military.
You're right.
I really do.
Absolutely. And I would second that. I believe that.
Yeah.
I've said on previous shows, even a person with a slight disability could be a supply clerk, could be a cook, could be
Something.
mail person delivers some mail, they work in the laundry, all kinds of jobs that necessarily don't require a big physical output, So I think the mentality of going through the service is beneficial. And most of us agree we went in as boys and came out as men.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Didn't take long to change that.
No, and I think that would. I look at today's youth, and what's going on in certain parts of the city, so this way, and I think, man, if they just go through that training and everything, get a little
Structure.
experience.
There's that
a little
structure we were talking about in the last conversation.
It would cure lots of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always said I wouldn't take $1 million for my experience, but I wouldn't want to do it again.
No, of course not.
I wouldn't give $1 to do it again. Yeah.
What'd you do when you got out of the service?
Well, when I got out of service, I had great plans to just spend a lot of time with my buddies, going out drinking, having a good old time, catching up for all my lost time. I think we all thought that.
Enjoying life.
Yeah. But I actually had my period there for a while. I'd say 1 full year. You could say I was homeless, actually. I came back to Fort Wayne, and of course my plans were to stay with the parents till I found a decent job and all that kind of thing, and I finally did find a job. And about a week and a half after I found that job, my father was a pastor, so he took over a church down in Markle, Indiana, so they moved out of the house. And the house it had well water, and well, it run dry or whatever. It needed a well point or something like that. It needed some money invested in it. And I lived in that house for about 3 weeks. And then it got winter time. I couldn't stay there anymore, so I stayed at my neighbor's house, paid them a little bit of rent. So I was just kind of bobbing around for about a year. So then, of course, I got married and had a couple of children, and plans didn't work out the way I'd planned them, but
Well,
It worked out
life
real
goes
got
on,
worked
right?
out all right.
Life goes on.
Yes, it does.
Yep.
Okay.
Gary, what did you end up doing, or what did you do when you got out of service?
Well, when I got out of the Navy, I went to work in a factory where my dad had worked, and I worked there for just a few months, and then I went into the automobile business for about a year. In 1971, I went into the furniture business.
In Fort Wayne here, was it?
No, I was down in Evansville.
Okay.
And went in the furniture business and stayed in the furniture business until I retired back in 2012.
Oh,
Okay. You was in sales, or
I was in sales.
okay.
We I traveled all over the United States. We liquidated furniture stores and fundraisers and stuff of that, stuff like that. And I worked retail for quite some time. You know, had my own, had a mattress store down in Evansville. That was a disaster for me. I couldn't focus on the business.
It's rough to.
You know, and I had other
You have
things.
to have help.
I had other things on my mind. You know,
Yeah.
you know, the booze was more important than my business, so I lost it, and then I started traveling.
Okay.
Yeah.
okay.
Now, going back to when you was in the service, and you worked on a carrier deck. They don't just send you out to work on a carrier deck. You have to have quite a bit of training for that, don't you?
Well,
As far as you wear special colored clothes.
Right, we
as far as the
we
other
were,
crew.
Yeah, we
right?
were the yellow shirts. The fuelers, the ones that fueled the planes, they wore the purple shirts, and then the catapult and resting gear, they wore the green shirts. So they were easily identified on the flight deck. You knew what everybody was doing and who they were.
Yeah, but the fuelers would have been back towards the back of the ship. Right?
Well, no, they had fueling ports from fore to aft. I mean, they had them in at midship. Whenever they came back, you know, before they went down off the hangar to the hangar deck, they would refuel them up in what they call Fly 1, Fly 2, or Fly 3 division. Most of your fueling, you know, took place by the bridge.
Yeah, but I was thinking, you're right out there where all the action's going on.
Yeah.
And the fuelers would be back someplace.
Right. They
Right.
were. Yeah, they were in what we call recovery.
Did you have the canted deck?
Well, yeah, we had the cannon deck. We had one for the launching. Well, actually, we had two for launching,
Okay,
and then we had one deck for recovery.
right. Yeah, so I was thinking that the refuelers
Right.
would be off on that
Right.
straight deck,
You know, down in
not on the cannon.
Yeah, down
Okay.
down on the catwalk in their berthing compartment. I mean, in their supply rooms.
Well, I appreciate you had a very important job, yes.
You know, our last show we was talking about the shepherd's house. One question I wanted to ask: do other cities have help like you're giving the people at Shepherd's House?
How about
Barb,
my
can you
wife?
answer that? Or
We've done a lot of research. The VA actually did an audit of 27 other houses like this. Very, very, very bad findings as far as I'm concerned. But there's one place in Los Angeles that's absolutely fantastic. It's called New Directions.
oh,
Phenomenal. They take care of all needs instead of just like housing. It's like a wraparound service with vocational training. They have a choir, they have education, they have anger management classes, PTSD classes. That's what I'm hoping that we'll step up one day and be able to handle everything. But
so
Ours specializes in drug addictions and alcohol, PTSD, combinations
Rehab.
of. There is other houses that they're pushing an effort now called getting them off the streets, basically.
Safe Haven.
Safe haven,
which
just
is
getting
you
them
can
off the streets, and if they got a problem,
yeah.
just get them off the streets. Basically, is what it is. And personally, we don't agree with it, or
You probably talked to other homes
yeah,
for how to.
no,
No?
we learned the hard way.
Yeah.
I
Well,
found
hard
that
way.
you jump in the pool, you learn how to swim, you're going to drown. That's pretty much the way I've lived my life anyway. And like she said earlier, when we first started Chevrolet, a lot of people say, well, what kind of degrees do you have? And I say 40 years field experience.
Yeah.
There you go.
You know, that's, no college. I didn't go to any particular schools. But now I did own a bar a couple of bars for a little over 8 years. And you learned a lot from the bars, believe me. So,
And then he
learn
brought
a
the
lot
drugs
human nature.
home. Well, that's pretty bad. But looking backward, if we hadn't gone through that, like a life in a bars and cocaine at home, we wouldn't be able to help these guys. We'd have
You
no
wouldn't
idea
understand it.
where their heads were.
Absolutely not.
Well, earlier, Carl, you were asking what we did after we got a day older. Maybe both of you said, when you got out of the Marine Corps, what did you do? Well, I told you a short synopsis of that, but basically, I played music for a living. I played lead guitar in a rock and roll band then, in a traveling road group. We traveled forever, for 3.5 years.
You still do? Play?
It's odd you asked that because that's the last time I saw Wayne. We were playing at the Eagles on New Year's Eve, and we've been playing the VFW down Main Street here also.
You might want to talk to our
Yellow
cattleman.
Rock. All right, that'd be wonderful. But no, after I retired a few years ago and sold my business, I thought, you know what, I'd like to start playing music again. And myself and 4 other Shriners showed up, and we all had guitars in our arms. So, well, if we're going to play music, we can't have 5 guitar players. So I thought, well, I'll buy a keyboard and learn how. So I learned how to play a keyboard, and I played a little guitar. But at 68 years old, I'm back in the group again. But
Well,
that's
sorry.
basically where I learned the drugs.
Sorry, we're out of time again.
No kidding.
Already, yeah,
Well, let's do
already.
another show.
Remember, freedom is not free, so if you see a veteran or someone in uniform, just walk up to them and say, thank you for your service. Thank you and good night.